Okay guys, today we are going to build this modern nightstand. Okay guys, let's get started. These legs are going to be made out of 2x4s. I want all of these pieces to be 1 inch thick, 3 inches wide with a 10-degree angle and a half lap at each end. Putting these legs together is really simple. I'm just going to clean up the shoulders and do a little pre-sanding, and then it's just glue and clamps. I'm not going to use any mechanical fasteners at all. So this was my first time with angled half laps, and they actually turned out better than I expected them to, but I did have to do a little cleanup with a flush trim bit. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on how to build a box because it's basically what this is, but I will say when you have pieces that are this close in size, it's a good idea to label your pieces. And I also like to lay out my dados and rabbits. Now it doesn't have to be perfect because I'm not going to be cutting by the lines. I just want to know what goes where so I don't screw it up. After I cut the dados and the rabbits, I'm going to go ahead and mount these spacers for the drawer slides because it'll be a lot easier to do now than after the box is built. According to the National Dental Association, 4 out of 5 dentists agree that subscribing to this channel helps prevent gum decay. So let's all join together in a fight for better dental hygiene and hit that subscribe button. I'm just going to rip down some 1x pine for the rails and stiles, but you always want to cut to fit. Never trust that your cabinet is the exact size that it's supposed to be. The last big part of this build is the top, and after I planed it down to 1 inch thick to match the legs and the rails and stiles, then I just cut and ripped the pieces down to size, leaving it just a little bit bigger than what I need to. When you lay out your pieces, alternate your green smiley face and frowny face. That'll keep it from bowing in one direction. Normally, when I glue up tops, I use cawls to keep everything nice and flat. This time, I decided to just use biscuits. That was a huge mistake. Don't do it. It wasn't flat. It took me forever to sand it. Always use cawls. While I had the belt sander out, I went ahead and smoothed out these legs. And I have to admit, these legs turned out a lot better than what I expected them to. Then I just attached the legs with some glue and some screws. Then we can flip it over and see what it looks like. Is it just me, or does it look like a robot from the 1980s? I'm really glad that I made these tops just a little bit bigger than what the plans called for, because both of these nightstands turned out to be a 1/16 of an inch wider than they were supposed to. So I was able to cut these to fit and make them perfect. I'm going to mount these tops with screws, but I'm going to cut some slots in the top of this cabinet to allow for wood movement. Then you just clamp it in place and screw it down. After what seemed like an eternity of sanding, I grabbed my trim router and I added a small chamfer to the top. And you guessed it, more sanding. My original plans were to add a chamfer to all edges, but when I modeled this in Fusion 360, I didn't like the way the drawer front looked against the rails and stiles. So I just decided to leave it all off and just break the edges with some sandpaper. All that's left is a little caulk. These things are ready for paint. So while the caulk was drying, I just threw these drawers together. Nothing fancy, just butt joints everywhere. I said butt. I'm going to go ahead and fit my drawers now, just so I don't run the risk of scratching the paint later. When I install slides, I always have it to where the drawers themselves can adjust up and down, and the slides will adjust in and out. Once the height is adjusted, I'll lock it in place, and then I'll fit the drawer front. I left the drawer front a 1/2 inch proud of the drawer bottom because I'm not using drawer pulls. Once I'm happy with everything, I'll rip it apart, sand the drawer fronts, and we are ready for paint. And it's painted. Put the drawers back in and we are done. Even though this was completely different than anything I've ever done, it was a lot of fun. I really did enjoy it, and it turned out a lot better than I thought. This was my wife's idea. She wanted something a little more modern. What the wife wants, the wife gets. And if you guys would like to have one of these of your very own, there's plans available on my website. There is a link in the description. So thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you next week.